the Islamic State, an extremist Islam group. It has shocked the entire world with indiscriminate killings and hostage-taking. The so-called Islamic State group began as a branch of the international terrorist group Al-Qaeda in 2003. It changed its name to the Islamic State on June 29, 2014, and is gaining power rapidly. The continuing atrocities by the Islamic State militant group has infuriated the global community. International allied forces led by the United States are intervening. Unlike other terrorist groups, the Islamic State militant group is actively recruiting members on social network services, targeting teenagers, selling products with IS logos, and parodying online games to induce curiosity. Following the destruction of cultural assets in Iraq by ISIS, Iraq has made a strong plea for support from international allied forces.
ولحد الآن حقيقة ننتظر مجلس الأمن الدولي عقد جلسة طارئة والعراق يتصدى الآن ويحقق انتصارات.
Meanwhile, the Islamic State militant group continues to expand its influence, recently accepting a pledge of allegiance from the Nigerian Boko Haram, one of the 3 largest terrorist organizations in the world. On today's Upfront, we discuss solutions and responses to the growing threat of the Islamic State.
Hello and welcome to Upfront. I am Kang Tae-ri. The militant extremist group that calls itself the Islamic State has shocked the world with its atrocities. What can be done to prevent further escalation of such terrorism? On today's Upfront, we discuss this self-proclaimed group, the Islamic State. And as always, we have a great panel of experts on this topic. First of all, we have Professor Park Hyon-do from Institute of Middle Eastern Affairs at Myongji University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
And Professor Il-kwang, Research Fellow at Konkuk University Center for Middle Eastern Studies. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Professor of Law, Professor Se-ryeon from Kyung Hee University is joining us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
And Professor Min-woo from Police Science and Security Studies from Gachon University is also in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Now, understanding what we are dealing with here on today's table is very important, and in terms of strategizing, I guess, against this group. A lot of confusion out there. It's sort of like a hermit kingdom, or it could be my lack of knowledge. So do explain what this group means and how big is this organization?
Well, I should explain, first of all, the name so-called IS. They call themselves IS, Islamic State, but normally the Muslims in the Middle East do not like the terminology at all. So instead of IS, they call Daesh. Daesh is an abbreviation of the Arabic terminology, exactly the translation of the IS, IS in Arabic. So in Arab world, in Arabic or Persian, the IS is called right now as the Daesh.
Dawlat Islamiyah in Arabic. Yeah.
Because the Islamic State, some are saying the Islamic State sounds too pretty of a word to this terrorist group. So let's come up with that name, Daesh. I don't know if I said it correctly.
Exactly.
So that it's foreign enough for us not to accept it so well. I guess that's the rationale here. So our failure to appreciate the difference between this group, the Islamic State, and other extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda is, that can lead to failure in our strategy. So how different is this group from other extremist groups?
Okay, actually we have to understand their belief system. Actually we have to know about this Islamic Salafist movement. So IS and Al-Qaeda is part of this big grand movement of Islamic Salafism.
Okay.
So But the difference is their approach, how to actually build this, Salafist world. So Al-Qaeda, and they try to be the hub of network and actually coordinating different Islamic terrorist groups in different parts of the world.
Sure.
So including the Pakistani Taliban, Afghanistan Taliban, and Boko Haram in Nigeria, and they try to coordinate. So they worked as hub of network. So they didn't need the local basis for as a state. But IS actually took the different strategy. So their strategy is actually built the state first in a certain geographical area, and then they try to expand to the rest of the world. So it's a different strategy, but the nature is pretty similar.
I mean,
as I understand the Salafists, they are trying to go back to sort of early fathers or early believers. So we're setting the clock back to about the 7th century, I guess. But in today's world, what kind of relevance does it have? Of course, we see that they are dressed like a 7th century old believers, but does that really translate well in their minds and in their world?
It is, because, the Islamic Salafist movement, although it is a small part of the Islam world, and their beliefs is a reaction to the historical victimized experience from outsiders. So it actually starts from the Christian Crusade.
right.
So the Salahuddin actually led fight against the Christian Crusade in Jerusalem. So the beliefs actually started, and from that moment, after the Christian Crusade, there's Mongol invaders. So they are ruled by Mongols for centuries. So these Middle Eastern people, and they actually developed this strong antipathy against outsiders. After that, they experienced European imperialism. And then they have this Soviet and United States during the Cold War. So they have this accumulated series of victimization experience. That's why this Islamic Salafism has strong selling point among the people in the Middle East and Africa and South Asia in this Muslim world.
I mean, you said selling point. It's certainly selling because this group has seized Mosul area in Iraq last June and already rules an area that's actually bigger than the United Kingdom. So that's just to give our viewers some perspective here. So you were talking about, Professor Park, earlier, how it defines itself as a state. I want to go back to that point a little bit and delve deeper into that. So it's insisting on being called the Islamic State, sort of implying a new set of borders, some kind of government there. How significant is this?
Actually, they started the first. Their name was actually first Islamic State in Iraq in 2006. It started with this Islamic State in Iraq, and then in 2011, when Syria was suffering from the civil war, they advanced actually into the Syrian territories and expanded their the spheres of influence, and they renamed their organization as the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. I mean, ISIS, or in Arabic, Sham, the same thing. ISIL, or Levant, Islamic State in Iraq and Levant, or Islamic State in Levant, in Iraq and Sham, the same thing. Sham is Levant, the same thing. ISIL or ISIS. And then last year, I think, June 29th, they again renamed. They renamed their organization as Islamic State. Islamic State. So they try to, by rebuilding their own ideas on the basis of the 7th century golden period of Islamic expansion in the era, they try to re-establish so-called caliphate, Islamic State in modern world. And for them, other Muslims are apostates and also hypocrites, and they are not real Muslims. So they try to make a pure Islamic State in this world.
I'd like to add one more thing. And we use the same language, same terminology, state. I mean, Westerners and we actually use state, and Islamic State also use state.
Right.
But it's different meaning of state.
Oh, how is
when
that?
when we use a state, it means nation state.
Right.
Okay. In 1648, there's a Westphalian Treaty in Europe. So after 30 years warfare, and European, the kings and knights actually gathered together and they proclaimed, okay, whoever rules, whoever prevails, meaning divided by the land and each is sovereignty and states. So don't bother with each other.
Exactly.
So this is the basic core of modern nation-state system. So we actually respect the other countries. So sovereignty and we don't interfere.
Right.
But Islamic State is not that. It's not modernized sense. State meaning Allah, and then the government. So caliphate state actually. So there's no border. Border is actually paganist beliefs. So lands cannot be separated.
So you're saying it's their doctrine, or whatever you call it, is to violate the borders. It's sort of like an ideological suicide for them to respect national borders. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, they totally disregard national border.
Exactly.
And drawing the national border, it's a paganist practice. So it's against the religion.
Okay.
So when they say state, every Muslims on the planet belongs to their citizenship. So they can mobilize anyone for their soldiers from any part of the world. It's a totally sensible.
So rather than having rather than the United States or Korea
Exactly.
having their demarcation territorially, maybe it's a lot like a Holy Roman Empire kind of concept where
No, in Islamic
under belief.
tradition, the word is two words. The word is, one is, Dar al-Islam is peace, the Islamic State. The last word is, Dar al-Harb, the word of war. So all the fundamental groups, fundamentalists, including IS and Hamas, and even Hezbollah, their main aim, constant aim, is to build Islamic State. But all the rest group did not succeed. But IS, what we see, IS, they succeeded to build Islamic State, as Professor Song exactly mentioned, occupying their territories, and also one big difference, great difference from Al-Qaeda is their self-sufficiency. Al-Qaeda depends on donation from other Saudi Arabians or the other countries, the wealthy families. But this IS group, they can make money. And we know the selling.
Where is that money coming
Well,
from?
all the money is from the
Oil
we
money?
all know, yeah, crude oil, selling black market, selling all the oils from black market, and the kidnapping the Europeans and get some ransom.
The ransom, okay. Makes sense.
And also they imposing levying taxes on the infra in their territories. Yeah, they have they're getting collecting taxes.
And also, according to the source of the Russian government, they make about $10 billion annually by delivering the heroines from Afghanistan to Europe.
I want to talk about the recruiting process. Very successful. Tens of thousands of foreign Muslims immigrated to the IS. Recruits hailing from all over the world. Even we saw one from Korea. What do we think of this?
Well, it's really serious problems. Also, we all know Kim. He also went to Turkey and joined this group. As we all know, the IS groups using internet are very sophisticated, very well-made videos. It's just like you feel like doing game. This is not like documentary films. So all the young people really love watching, and automatically brainwash it by these videos. So they say they pay good salary. They can provide a car and house and everything. So I think we need to do something filtering all the video YouTubes made by this IS group. So ban all the this internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so
I don't see any
interesting.
other choices.
It's very interesting because this group, like you said, it wants to revive the traditions or the way of doing things, protecting its sovereignty or whatever, going on a war from hundreds of years ago. But it's utilizing Twitter, Facebook, I hear, 46,000 Twitter accounts, an average of 1,000 followers for each account. So that sheer number of followers for this group is amazing. It's very interesting. It's using tools from both hundreds of years ago and now.
Exactly, this is the characters of all the Islamic fundamentalism. Not just IS, on Al-Qaeda also using internet, and Hamas, also Palestinian Hamas, they're also using internet. Hezbollah and all the Islamic groups, ideologically, they want to go back to, 7th century or Middle Ages. But technically, they use all the internet. They have no problem with new technologies. This is their idea. This is their characters. This is their advantages.
What's so attractive about that?
Probably they don't understand the archaic theological point, but I think that what's happening in the world economically has a lot to do with it. I saw some articles that those people who are joining from Western countries who most of them are descendants from the Middle East countries.
Sure.
And many of them are going through this identity crisis. And they,
as teenagers.
Right. They belong to the West, but at the same time, they have a heritage there. I think that conflict kind of grows with the economic situations that kind of oppresses the minorities in those areas. Then I think it's a short hop from there to see that there is a group of people or some camaraderie formed already based on victimization that has perpetrated over centuries, they would see, and their present very sweet kind of motivation to join and for the economic gain and the welfare. I think those are combined to lure a lot of people. And I was surprised that it lures people from Korea. And if you think about it in that terms, anybody who's dissatisfied with society, probably they look at IS as at least one of the options even to think about.
Sort of an extreme decision there, Professor Hyun.
Well, maybe it's a little radical, but in my opinion, the violence actually has a strong selling point. People actually want to fight and want to be a warrior. So it's
play
called
video
warrior,
games
warrior
in
heroes.
person.
But not, they're not satisfied with the video games. They actually want to a combat field and try to kill people and try to be hero. So we have to understand this, psychology of violence. I mean, we don't directly hit this, real nature, and we cannot solve the problem. The Mr. Kim, the Korean guy and joining in the IS, it's a pretty similar psychology. The teenager boys joining the military forces and fighting for their country. Okay, you want to be a warrior.
Right. Added on to that, I saw some studies where they're likening this phenomenon as a kind of a gang culture related kind of phenomena, where especially young people, they don't really pursue violence per se at first, but the gang culture itself promotes violence, and more violent you are, you become kind of proven commodity in that community and gets respect. Yeah. So getting the respect of violence and furthering that goal through making a lot of identifiable enemies, so that they're kind of getting together has some sort of meaning, and having the religious fundamental background really helps in that regard.
So, I mean, we're just talking about any kind of students. We're not just talking about social outcasts, loners. We're talking about some interesting headlines here. Scottish girl who used to read Harry Potter books, or former Manchester United fan beheads IS hostages. We're talking about 3 UK schoolgirls just crossing into the border into Syria. How do we counter this? Certainly a challenge if we're just talking about anyone joining the
Actually,
IS.
international community should make a very concerted effort to stop the propaganda. But as is well proven, the IS is using and employing highly sophisticated digital strategy to allure youngsters.
So these young jihadists, right? What do they do in this group? They fight, they behead hostages. What kind of roles would they take up? For example, the 18-year-old teenager from South Korea. What would he be doing?
Now, he is being trained actually right now.
Yeah.
He has a very robust body, so I think that he can be used as a warrior, but it depends upon their decision.
And if he fails in training, or
Maybe.
if he finds himself, oh, not so happy in this group, in this gang, I want to go home, I want to have some kimchi.
It's not easy, impossible to get out of there.
You know what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I jumped in. Actually, for terrorist forces, it doesn't take a high, heavy training. We are not talking about Navy SEALs and special forces. Okay, the terrorist groups such as Boko Haram in Nigeria, they use 8 years old and 12 years old boys.
That's
so
true.
just give them Kalashnikov and some drugs, and they're drug addicted and they're shooting people. It doesn't really matter. These soldiers effectively fight or not. They actually put forward and do some combat, and terrorists try to make noisy, okay? So 18 years old is enough to fight. And actually the operations, the recruits and combat soldiers are the same one. This is the typical characteristics of IS. During the Al-Qaeda, the Awalaki led this, the online operation. In Al-Qaeda case, they actually put the materials on website, so people can decide whether they read or not. But here in IS, actually the real soldiers, they are fighting daytime, and during the nighttime, they actually sit in front of the computer, and they actually chatting through SNS with the boys and girls around the world.
Yes.
And they actually, personally respond.
Exactly.
So why, this is why the IS recruitment strategy is so successful, comparing to the Al-Qaeda. So, definitely recruited the boys and girls, they will fight on the combat field.
Okay.
And they do the different things, of course.
All right,
Crimes,
now at this point, I want to get a viewpoint from outside of the studio. We're now connecting to Patrick Conan, a senior director from the Center for a New American Security, who has been emphasizing the need to take a stronger stance, of course, against this militant group. Hello, Mr. Cronin. Thank you so much for joining us today. My first question, what's so different or distinctive about this militant group that calls itself the Islamic State compared to other terrorist groups?
Well, the Islamic State started as a terror organization and it became a state. That's a very unusual accomplishment. It's a very alarming accomplishment. And while it has become a state in terms of controlling territory, it's not a normal state. It's not part of what we would have called the Westphalian system, that is in modern history, where states recognize the sovereign borders matter. This is a state that's trying to constantly expand itself into a larger caliphate that transcends existing state borders. Second reason the Islamic State is so dangerous is because of its quality of recruitment. It's able to appeal to a very diverse audience around the world, even non-Muslims, and attract especially young women, but also young men for different reasons. But because of the effective outreach, there are more than 90,000 social media sites being used by the Islamic State. They know how to essentially lie effectively to a young audience and to make it sound very attractive, to find purpose, to find justice, to be given instant power and instant recognition and a role in the world.
And you've talked about the possible role that Korea can play as a middle power in regards to the rising numbers of young people joining this group. Please elaborate. What can Korea do at this point?
When you take a country like Korea, a successful economy, a G20 country in terms of an economic leader, a country that's been leading on non-proliferation issues and has a history of understanding and dealing with North Korea's nuclear weapons. When you deal with a country like Korea that also has contributed to military missions under the United Nations banner, they understand the basic pillars of international order: economic, security, diplomatic. And so as a middle power, Korea can leverage that expertise, that access, that knowledge and experience to play a role that's bigger than, say, the size of population. If we go back to the problem of Islamic State, thinking about the internet and cyber, or thinking about training, or thinking about quietly mobilizing the community to try to figure out lessons learned and ways to keep adapting ahead of Islamic State as it adapts and changes or grows, Korea is very well placed to play a pivotal role in all of that.
All right, Dr. Cronin there from the Center for a New American Security. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I want to talk about this teenager, 18-year-old Korean. We only know him by his surname Kim. I'm a little worried. I mean, Dr. Cronin was talking about Korea's potential role as a middle power to somehow put this group in check, but we could also become very vulnerable in a potential hostage situation. What do you think?
Yes, we cannot just, we can prepare for, the worst case, just as you mentioned. But I don't think we can really save. We have any, military forces in Turkey. I don't think we have any military forces in Turkey or around Syria. So if we have any, emergency case, hostage cases, and we need to really cooperate with Turkish government or our allies to save it. But I'm not sure we can succeed it or not. This is a really, really bad situation. I don't want to think about it. Yeah.
I don't want to think about it either, because our newsroom is going to go crazy on this story. But there was a very recent example of how unhappy jihadists in this group somehow wanted to leave. That's the claims made by the family.
Right.
So we've seen these cases. Few have gone, joined the IS and never returned. So
yeah. One Israeli, Arab Israelis, he joined maybe this IS group, and then he regretted and he wanted to get out of it, but he couldn't succeed. He failed. But the IS, got him and accused him as a Mossad Israeli, security services, and killed him. So this is a bad case. So if he can succeed to get out of the escape, maybe he can pay his life like this. So this is a really, really bad situation.
Okay. And it makes things difficult for the international community's efforts, because their own country's nationals are in the extremist group, and it makes things challenging for the world leaders, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's very challenging. The problem is, the government, official government in those regions cannot do much about it. I'm actually dealing with these hostage negotiation cases around the world. This is the main problem. You go to the third world countries, you realize you're in the middle of the chaos. Okay, oftentimes these high-ranking government officials behind this hostage-taking, incident. Sometimes you have corrupted personnel, ineffective, police officers, and then criminal gangs. So it's a problem. So international society just cannot do much about it. As far as I know, only way to take people out is maybe through these criminal chains. Okay, the local drug dealers, or the tribal leaders, and private lobbyists, or the criminal gangsters and dubious terrorists, all different kind of people. Okay. Although you talk about IS, it's not all members are not the same. Some are more radical religiously, some are just, so and so, some are more criminal-like. So you have to use the back doors, pay money, quite good amount of money, and then you quietly take people out. That's the only way I know. And
behind the scenes kind
yeah,
of.
behind the scenes kinds. As soon as it broadcasted to the global media, it's over. And then IS, definitely will kill.
So this is where you come in, I think.
Right.
From your capacity as a legal expert, what can we do? I mean, this behind the scene kind of negotiations or taking people out secretly is not satisfactory, to say the least.
Right. I think because of the complexities it presents, as Professor Yoon has mentioned, even if you crush these people with laws and military forces, there's a danger that it might be embedded further in the society that makes it more difficult to identify and deal with. I think that the law is just one aspect of it, having a anti-terror measures that is being proposed in the National Assembly even as we speak. But it does have drawbacks as well, as we experienced in the United States case when they had a anti-terrorism law in force during the Bush times. There was a lot of challenges and complications with the constitutional laws and individual rights. And those kind of cases don't really help the cause to stop it. So even before we talk about the legal measures, which I think is necessary, but we talked about the slick campaigns and kinds of advertisements and all those SNS spaces.
Sure.
Probably we do need to kind of step up in that effort so that we will know better about what their motivations are and theologically and also kinds of carrots they put out is not a really real solution for the people who are jumping in to get the instant satisfaction.
Yes, I mean, there are some people with that opinion as well, to censor the cyberspace so that we put this group in check, or at least keep it from growing even bigger from over 20,000 members that it has under its belt. Is it possible legally? What opinions do we have on that? Well, Australia, for example, has criminalized attempts to join and travel to these IS regions. Can Korea do something like that? Or what's the legal status on that in Korea?
What we can do is declare a region or territory as a unfit to travel. And this advisory will be pretty strong in that regard. But I think that'll come to face with fundamental freedom to travel, and people will travel in that field if they want to. So it requires a coordination with the other countries and also the diplomats that are stationed in that country, so that it will be a concerted effort to gather information and let them know what they're getting into and the dangers and risks they are knowingly or unknowingly facing.
Yeah, we don't have any anti-terrorism bill at all yet. So for the last 5 years, about 60 terrorist-related foreign nationals were expelled from our country. But that's all we can do, because we don't have any anti-terrorism bill at all. So for example, if I joined the Al-Qaeda, then there is no way for Korean government to punish me. Yes.
The problem is, if we pass the counterterrorism or anti-terrorism act or whatever name it, and two things should be included.
Okay.
The most important thing is covert operation.
Covert operation.
Yeah, covert operation or undercover operation activities. So the nature is the traditional criminal justice system or legal acts is based on, after the fact. So crime or terror occurs. After that, investigation or investigation, response. But the modern days, the problem is any crime or any terror, we cannot wait because the results, outcome is too severe to disrupt the entire society or even nation state.
We were talking about covert operation and some of the difficult choices that we have to make, countries have to make, individuals have to make. I want to get your ideas as to what are some of the effective responses to counter the growth of this militant group. I mean, what can Korea do, for example? I mean, Mr. Cronin was talking about the importance of Korea's role as a middle power. What does that mean? Did you agree with him?
Actually, certainly our government should do something, but the problem is that our country may be dragged into unnecessary war with other countries. That's the problem. But right now, Korean government is doing its best to help Syrians and Iraqis on the humanitarian basis. And also the government is trying to make a very nice handbook and booklet for students to know what is going on. So what is going on in the terrorist groups? So not to join the group. But more than anything else, actually, I personally believe that we Koreans are very, very unaware of the terrorist attacks possible on our country. You know that before the 9/11 incident, Al-Qaeda tried to enlist Korea as a possible terrorist attack point. It's a proven fact because we have American military bases here all across the country. So for Al-Qaeda, Korea is a very nice target for terrorism. But we Koreans do not know. Actually, we are not aware of that kind of danger at all. So and many people believe that our Korea is very safe haven. No, it's not. It's not. So more than anything else, actually, we need to awaken. We need to be awakened to the fact that Korea may be under a terrorist attack.
Do you agree with him?
Exactly. I 100% agree with him because we are Korean society is very vulnerable to terrorist attack. We have in Seoul, huge metro subway system. But anybody who can get into there without any, he can bring any bomb, put waste storage anywhere in the subway. We have really serious situation here. So I think we can learn many things from Israeli cases. They're really, really good in security services, how to deal with security. Danger of them terror attacks. The most important thing, even after terror attack, how do we measure it after terror attacks? Do we have any manual for after terror attacks in the city, on big building, on department store? I don't know. Our governments have any manual for?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too, but we don't know. So we should check it out.
Well, you know how we were talking about some of the elements that we need to include in this anti-terrorism bill. Do you think it will be effective once it goes into effect after gaining some momentum in Korea?
I really hope so. We can learn something from all things happening now in all over the world. So, but after Iraq, Mr. Kim Jong-il was killed by the enemy in this terrorist group. So after that, everybody said we need to learn about Arabs and Islamic and everything, but I don't think, many substantial changes happen. So we just go back to the same things together always. So I think we really, really need to change our mind first, and then learn something and prepare something for real dangers.
Okay. Now then, to keep another teenager, or not necessarily a teenager, but a young mind in Korea from joining the this so-called Islamic State militant group, and potentially keep Korea from exposing itself as another country that has to deal with a hostage crisis, what can we do? What can the Korean government do in order to prevent further national breakdown? Professor
Education.
Park. Education.
Education. We need to have a very strong digital strategy to tell students how dangerous the group is all about.
Okay.
Otherwise, our youngsters may join without any thinking at all. Because for them, maybe the person who has a very strong will to fight against the enemy looks very cool, using the so-called teenage expression. So, in order to prevent our youngsters from joining, we need to strongly educate them how dangerous the group is.
And I hope they're watching our program right now.
Or the school teachers should run something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, for education. Well, despite my strong feeling against the heavy-handedness of the government, I think in this case, for the youngsters, our government could be a little bit, should I say, paternalistic and safeguard those youngsters from falling into what a lot of people will regard as a mistake if they really commit themselves to this kind of situation. So I would strongly support the education, but at the same time, the government strata, our institutions that we have can better work together to exchange informations, that are known information, so that we can track those people who are veering towards that direction. And also, internet traffic, I wouldn't advocate kind of being able to spy onto everything that they see, but we have means to block those sites. We do that with the illicit or pornographic sites already.
Exactly.
So we are already doing that, but we can be more comprehensive about not getting the wrong messages that go into our youngsters.
Okay, all right. So far, we've had a pretty great upfront conversation on this so-called Islamic State militant group. Now, I want to wrap this up, and maybe I want to get your final words to leave this conversation with. I'm going to start off with you, Professor Yoon.
Okay, this IS is pretty, serious problem. It's actually our problem. We don't have to just see the IS. Islamic Salafist movement is in great danger against the status quo of international politics. Look at the Pakistan, Afghanistan. It's still, Taliban is back, and Pakistan is in shaking, and the Uyghur is also Islamic extremism is expanding, and there's Abu Sayyaf in southern Philippines, and southern Thailand, southern Malaysia. There's Islamic extremism
the list goes on.
in Indonesia, and Somalia, and Nigeria. So what we see here, all this inner land of Eurasian Africa is all this Islamic extremism is expanding. So it actually can change the international status quo and maybe world history. So, whatever outcome comes out from this, transformation, it may negatively hit our national interest. Right. So the current status quo we have to sustain. So that's why we have to have strong alliance with U.S. and other Western, allies. So this is pretty serious problem. Number two, we have to closely monitoring the possible connection between North Korea and Islamic extremism, because it's a simple logic. Enemy's enemy is my friend. Okay, and I know the one case. There's racial white extremist groups working with the Palestinian terrorists in U.S. Seems strange, but their common enemy is Jewish. So enemy's enemy is my friend. So there's possibility North Korea is closely working with this Islamic terrorism. North Korea can find friends. North Korea also can make a lot of money from selling weapons. So we have to see that scenario. So maybe Islamic terrorists, coming into South Korea and committing terrorist attacks on the behalf of North Korea. It's a possible scenario. So we have to see the grand pictures.
A very relevant point for the South Korean government. Professor Song.
I think that we have to know what we are dealing with. I think that's the theme of this discussion. But these are extremist groups that we're talking about. There's an extensive list of it, but however, it's a minority groups. Most Islamic countries and all those believers are moderate and not advocating war and violent means. So we have to caution against ourselves to not to be judgmental and have a prejudice, but at the same time understand what they're coming from. For example, one of the discussions we had before this panel was that the religious underpinning of that extremist group is a sense of apocalypse. They believe that the end is near and there will be a big war, just like Armageddon is the word for the Christians, near Syria. So they're preparing for that. In that sense, probably the negotiation with them will be limited if that's what they're thinking, the end is near. So knowing what we're dealing with and what kind of motivations that they have will probably educate ourselves, but also to them. But at the final point is, I think that the ball is on sort of Islamic countries' court a little bit, because no matter how much we say this is extremist ideals and not really mainstream, but it does have extensive history, starting from the Crusades and all kinds of, Professor Yoon has mentioned the victimization kind of mentality. I think that healing has to happen within the community. So I think that this is a time where we would like to see that there is a harmonization of the society and also kinds of healing that happens in that region.
There is hoping there. And Professor Sun.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that, I mean, in our society, need to makes more efforts to learn something happened in the Middle East. Don't think that something happened in the Middle East, it has nothing to do with us. Yes, everything is, connected to us. So I think we all Koreans make more efforts to get aware of what's going on the other side of the world. So I think this is very important. Not just, yes, everything is happening. Another word is very, very close, very, connected to our problems. So I think
thanks to Twitter.
Yeah, we need to get more interest in, world affairs. That's what I want to make emphasize. Yeah.
And Professor Park.
Well, the Al-Qaeda and IS, they are extremists, definitely. The only difference would be, one of the biggest difference would be Al-Qaeda is targeting far enemy, the West, and the IS is targeting the near enemy, so-called the Muslim political regime enslaved to the West. But anyway, both of them are extremists. I'm worried about the rise of Islamophobia, not only in our country, but also worldwide. That would be another fatal mistake if we do actually propel that kind of the sentiment among the non-Muslims, because throughout the history, non-Muslims had no problem living together peacefully with Muslims. So I hope especially in our country, Koreans would not be worried about innocent Muslims living in this country very peacefully with Koreans together.
Okay, that's a great ending to our conversation. No bias based on lack of knowledge, I guess, and study what's going on around the world, and be careful out there, those young minds who have that romance with violence. Thank you so much, all four of you, for coming in today and enlightening me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that will do it for this week's Upfront. Thank you so much for watching, and do join us again next time.